Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and today I have returning guest Katie Joy Duke joining me. Some of you may remember Katie. She's an author, mindset coach, public speaker, and a stillbirth and stage 4 breast cancer survivor. Her memoir, Still Breathing, My Journey with Love, Lost, and Reinvention, won a 2023 American Writing Award in Women's Issues and was a #1 Amazon bestseller in the categories of family health and pregnancy and childbirth. Welcome back.
Thanks, Marianne.
I'm so glad to have you here. And so for those of you listening, I said to Katie, we can't talk. I just want to start recording because I want to capture it all. I'm so excited to have you back here with me today.
Me too. It's great to be back. I really enjoyed our first conversation and I'm excited to see where this one goes.
So you've had a lot going on. We can now say full cancer survivor, 15 months-ish of treatment, right? So you had chemotherapy, you had a mastectomy, left side. You had some, I think, lymph node surgery, right?
Correct.
And a whole bunch of radiation. So first, let me say congratulations for the record.
Thanks.
But I also want to touch on, you were someone that was really kind of, straddling between Western and Eastern modalities and, what should I do and which one should I follow? And ultimately you went with a combination, I think, right?
I did.
So tell us a little bit about that now with it in the rearview mirror. And, you can't second guess, did I make the right choice? But what did you learn from that? What advice would you give to others around that?
Well, I definitely followed in the footsteps of many people who made similar decisions in terms of being a cancer patient and having to grapple with what to do. I also just want to say from the get-go that an incredible book, actually, I have a copy right here. It's called Radical Remission, Surviving Cancer Against All Odds by Kelly A. Turner. And I highly recommend this as a resource to anyone going through cancer treatment or anyone that's supporting someone going through cancer treatment. She's an incredible researcher. And there are 9 key factors that she found across the board were practices that every cancer patient she interviewed actually ended up doing to help them deal with their cancer. And what I discovered as I was reading this book is that but even before I read the book, I was also applying these factors in my life. And there are things like having a super strong, supportive community, asking for help, talking about what you're going through, letting go of control and taking control. And I could read the list, but I am really glad that I took all of the Western advice that was given to me in terms of what I needed to do from a purely allopathic perspective of chemo, surgery, radiation, etc. One, because we know that it worked and it doesn't always work for everyone, but it did work for me and the type of cancer that I had. I also had 17 rounds of immunotherapy to target the HER2/neu receptor. And they were more of an inconvenience of just actually going in and getting the infusion than necessarily having any major side effects from it. But again, it was something that I had to do every 3 weeks for an entire year and pretty much took a whole day. But I also did a lot of spiritual work and a lot of cleansing, so to speak, a lot of addressing my habitual ways of being, my mindset, the culture of busy and doing. And these are things that I was already addressing in my life. But if things happen to us for a reason, and I'm one of those people that believes that only I get to decide why something happened, and also look really critically at my choices that impacted the things that I drew into my life. And to the extent that I'm here to embrace the chaos and learn from really big experiences, I think that I needed to go through this cancer experience, one for myself and deepening my spiritual practice and my spiritual beliefs, but also to use my voice to share with other people, to be a guide, to be an example. And I'm still really close to the experience. And so I know that what I have to offer now is still incredibly valuable. And I'm also really looking forward, literally looking forward, but also looking forward to seeing how I continue to evolve, because it's a constant practice. And I mean, just this morning, I was diving into The Artist's Way, which is an incredible book about using our creativity to expand our spiritual life and to reach our goals and our dreams. Like, I'm always getting curious about how I can live a fuller life that brings me joy, and learning how to quiet the critic and the judge and the censor and all of those stories that, for me, and I know everybody else on the planet, come up and limit us,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm just so deeply interested in how I can live and have more peace and more harmony. It's like it's become my life's mission. It's like my purpose now.
I think I probably said this to you the first time we talked, and our messes often become our message. And I mean, you now have an even bigger, if there can be, message with what you went through with the cancer treatment and the cancer journey. I think one of the things that just consistently makes me look at you in awe and inspiration is both when you went through the loss with Poppy and that whole story after writing the book, and now with the cancer, you somehow find a way to be positive. And I know that's not an every single day thing, but overall, you come across positively and wanting to share your message, wanting to be so vulnerable that you let people in to see the journey. And I guess I'm curious about how do you keep yourself being able to do that? Because many of us would get shut off. Many of us would get negative. Many of us would have, laid in bed for 8 days and not wanted to get out of bed because it's a lot. It's just a lot. You've been through a lot. And instead you keep pushing on and you keep inspiring. I mean, what's the driver?
I've joked before and I've said it's like compulsive. I mean, I'm addicted to it, and I'm not always positive. I was thinking about this interview coming up, and I was just thinking to myself, like, honestly, I was like, I want to be so transparent and authentic and vulnerable, because I am so grateful for the feedback and the way that people reflect my essence to me. But Lord have mercy. I mean, if you had the reel of the BS that my mind feeds me, you'd be like, dang, she's a biatch. Like,
nope. I'd be like, dang, she's normal. She's normal.
I am so normal. And I am not by any means. I mean, I would say I am definitely further along on this journey than someone who started January 1, And so, yes, I do believe that I came to this earth in this incarnation, in this experience, if we contract for experiences. Like, I mean, there's so many different beautifully esoteric ways of thinking in terms of like, whether we contract to come here, we know we're going to have these experiences. Our soul is ready for that. We've transcended other experiences in past lives. Or, I mean, and that's, we could spend years debating all those things, but I do choose to believe, and I feel there's the knowing in me that I did come to this earth for bigger experiences, and that I'm because I choose to embrace them, even the joy and the sorrow, but like both. It's always for me a both, and it's not one or the other.
One of the things I've learned on this journey over the last handful of years, you can't really be authentic unless it is both. It has to be both, really.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that you share with everybody that you have that soundtrack because we all do. And often people can feel isolated. Why am I like this? Why does this happen to me? Why do I have these negative reels going back and forth in my brain? The truth is most of us do.
We all do. It's actually our subconscious mind. We are wired, our brain, the way that humans evolved over time is we are wired to be in our brain protects us, right? So the autonomic nervous system, like our breathing, our heart rate, we blink our eyes, we don't think about how to walk anymore. Like all those things we do unconsciously, subconsciously, non-consciously, right? But as humans, we have this beautiful conscious mind. We have free will. We have imagination. We have our intuition. We have the ability to reason. We have the ability to have logic. These are all amazing things that, our prefrontal cortex give us the power to do. So what we have to learn how to do is use our conscious mind, the part that we do have control over, to retrain our subconscious mind, because it's those stories that aren't true, the limiting beliefs, the inner critic, that's all stuff that comes from the subconscious. It's stuff that we were inoculated with when we were children, stories that we then believed because we were told that that's the way it is. And then that got kind of like locked in there. And we do actually have the power to rewire our brain. And neuroscience is now discovering, and quantum physics and all these things that I'm just so fascinated by, are that we can consciously retrain our subconscious mind so that the story changes, so that we actually rewire our beliefs. It takes time, though. I mean, this is one of the things that I have to give myself grace, and with my coaching clients, of course, giving them grace, but we have to plant the seeds with intention. And then we have to give these new ideas time to grow. We have to have patience to allow the new thought to gestate. And then, while in the same way, we also have to be in action. We have to, for instance, if we're working with affirmations, we have to repeat the affirmations. We have to get into the meditative state. We have to choose to do the work over and over. We have to tend to the garden of our soul, right? It's not just going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be permanent. None of this is permanent. It always requires work. And I think for me, that's something that I have had to sort of surrender to, this idea that I am never going to check growth and spirituality and evolution off the list. I'm never going to be done. Like it's never going to be done.
Yeah.
And when I pray that I'm old and ready to pass on, and I'm holding my daughter's hand, and everyone is there with me, or whatever, like that I'm ready to go, it's going to be even that I've gained even more wisdom and more insight. So things are going to happen that just suck. And I would love to say that I'm done being traumatized, but I also don't have any control over that. I mean, I could hide inside my house, right? And choose to not be in the world. But even that would be traumatizing, because I would be so lonely and, away from what feeds my soul. But I think we have to remember that we always have a choice. And a lot of us forget that. And so if we can just remember that every single day is an opportunity to make choices that are going to move us in the direction that we want to go. And if you don't know the direction that you want to go, give me a call. Let's work together, right? Like, get the support that you need. It doesn't have to be therapeutic. Maybe it does need to be therapeutic. Maybe you could do both, but like getting help from your community, getting help from people, maybe not your community. Maybe your community sucks and it's time to get a whole entire new community, right? Like setting boundaries. I mean, I could go on forever, obviously, but these are all the things that I continuously do, and reevaluating and being willing to do like another inventory and say, do I like what I thought I liked? Is this goal still something I want to work for? Do I really actually want this? Do I care? And being able to say, no, actually, I'm going to wipe the slate clean and start all over.
Yeah. I think the undercurrent there is one that is about, it's an ongoing, right? It's an ongoing effort. You said that, and you hope for you it never ends. But I think it's important for people to hear that as well, because often people do think, I did the work. Check, I stopped that bad habit. But the reality is, it's ingrained in us. It's probably going to come back if you don't keep reinforcing it. And there's more work that can be done. This is just an ongoing evolution of creating the best you. And that will change from today to next week to a month from now. It will continuously change. So I think,
It will.
yeah, I think it's important for people to hear that it's not one and done, or it's not, check, you've done it. And now I know all those things, so I'm good. It's just an ongoing level of effort to keep it going.
Well, and we forget. I mean, how quickly we forget. Sometimes I have to actually thank my mind for how much it forgets. Because if I remembered everything I've been through, we know that the body keeps the score. We know the body remembers. And so we owe it to our body to process what we go through and to move and to allow and have feelings. But if we actually literally remembered everything, I don't think any of us would want to get out of bed, because it would be so overwhelming. Even if we could remember all the good things, we're not meant to always be carrying all of that. And so letting go, right? And allowing more in. And I think it's kind of like if your house is cluttered or your closet is overflowing, right? You can't bring anything new in. You can't have new experiences if you aren't willing to get rid of the things that aren't useful to you anymore, right? And so processing those things out, saying, you know what, looking at your life and saying, I don't want this in my life anymore. It doesn't serve me. It did at one point. It's a habit, maybe a behavior, maybe it's a hobby, whatever it is, a person.
Yes.
Being willing to be able to constantly be moving through. It's, this idea of like, it's an ongoing process. It would be like, well, I ate breakfast. I'm done eating breakfast for the rest of my life. I'm done. Like, I don't need to eat breakfast. Right? Like, can we equate it? Can we make it so silly and simple that we realize that like we have these unrealistic expectations of, personal development or whatever, that it's going to be over, or it's like, no, it's every single day. We take a shower today and we take a shower tomorrow, because tomorrow you're going to stink, it's like, and so it's this constant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And breaking it down and making it more just simple to say this is part of a daily practice.
A daily practice, right. And even if you don't want to call it, I'm on this big personal development journey, good reminder around the, picking your happy every day, picking the kind of day you're going to have, the kind of mood you're going to be in, the kind of responses you're going to have. I mean, that is just about positioning yourself to bring joy into your life, bring positivity into your life, but making the decision to do it. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's something that you constantly have to do. I want to talk about something, and you sort of alluded to it, but I want to bring us back there. It was one of the big things I wanted to talk about with you. So I think this isn't something I made up, like it's out there. This is a well talked about thing. The gap between our expectations and our reality is often the place where we get filled with resentment, discontent, dissatisfaction, boredom, sadness, probably all of those sort of negative responses. And one of the things that I said to you was, I wanted to explore how life has just kept hitting you with unexpected realities that, of course, none of us would have wanted or expected. And yet you take them and you position and keep moving on. You just baselining basically and move on. And I guess I'm curious as to how you do that, how you don't get stuck in that gap. Because the easy one, right? You would have certainly imagined that Poppy would have been here with you. She's not. Well, in a physical sense, we both know that, you have other thoughts, but in a physical sense, you can't walk her to the park or whatever, right? So that's definitely wasn't expected. The
right.
cancer, going through that and now having one breast removed. Who could have predicted or expected that? How do you, I don't know, not get filled with all those negative, I'm going to say negative emotions. And I know, again, we're generalizing. You do sometimes, I'm sure. But in a large sense, you move forward with grace and peace and positivity. And I want to know how.
I think the reality is that I do actually feel all of those negative feelings. I actually feel them. I allow myself to feel the feeling. There's incredible research now that emotions only last 90 seconds in our body if we give ourselves permission to feel, like for instance, anger, that if something is triggering you and all of a sudden you feel anger, if you give yourself permission to feel the anger fully, the emotion itself will actually process through your bloodstream. Like whatever gets dumped into your bloodstream, whatever hormones, whatever feelings like that, will take about 90 seconds for your body to process it. What we do as humans is then we recreate that experience. We hold on to the anger. We don't give ourselves full permission. Like when we don't fully feel the experience, but we like shove it somewhere and it hardens and it calcifies and it turns into, like you said, resentment, and it turns into anger, right? Like I look for ways to feel my feelings. I let myself feel them. And I can't necessarily say that I did a whole lot of that before Poppy died 8 years ago. And for your listeners who, don't know me or, any of my story, my daughter, Poppy Annabelle, was stillborn on October 26th of 2015 at full term. And I've published a memoir in her honor about my experience healing from that loss. And on the heels of my book being published, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. So those are some of the things that you've been referring to in terms of how do I keep making it through these unexpected twists and turns. But Poppy, that grief experience, there was something in me intuitively, and that's part of my conscious brain, like that's that special part of us being human, that I intuitively knew that I had to slow down and stop living the way that I had thought life was going to be heading, and choose to sit in the feelings of devastation and grief and depression and anger and rage. I mean, I've done, like guided meditations where I'm like screaming half of the time. And that's intentional because I let it out. I once, in the middle of my cancer treatment, was so fraught with rage. I give myself permission over and over again to feel. That is how I keep moving forward, and I move through. You did say move on, and I think that there's a real distinction between moving on and moving through. Moving on sort of implies that we ignore it, or that it just gets put in a back corner of a closet and forgotten about. And a lot of people do move on, but I think that moving on for me is not an authentic way of being. It's more about moving through and then moving forward. And there's some amazing TED Talks on this very subject about we move forward with our grief. We don't move on from it. And I know, you're a very sensitive, empathetic person when it comes to these subjects, but there really is sort of culturally like, oh, haven't you moved on from that yet? And you're like, what? Like, no, I carry it with me. It's there. It's ever present. Right. And so that's how I managed to be the resilience and sort of the radiance, I think, and the positivity that people see in me is more, I think, that they are picking up on something that is intangible. Like I have gotten to the point in my life where, having been, sort of gray appearing and bald and no eyelashes and no hair, no eyebrows, completely devoid of what modern society tells us like a woman would be beautiful or whatever. Like, so I've kind of had all that stripped away, and still people will say, wow, you're radiant, you're glowing, you're gorgeous. And I'm like, thanks. But I'm like, man, it can't possibly be my cheekbones, or, it's not like, oh, wow, I have pretty color eyes, or it's not that. Like, it's something intangible that people are intuiting and that they're picking up on. And I mean, that might be my aura or my spirit or my soul, or
it's not your physical. It's nothing physical about you, though, of course, you are a beautiful woman. That's not my point. It is the essence of who you are that is just, you emote that everywhere you go. And I think that is exactly what I'm talking about. When, of course, you're going through a lot of what we'd call negative, you still come across as very positive. And for those that don't know you, those that don't follow you, I don't mean that you're always, super hyper positive and, that positivity bus. That's not the case.
I hate toxic positivity. It's the worst.
Yeah, that's not you. And I mean, you've had plenty of videos where you're in tears and saying, today sucks. This is what I'm going through,
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? So it's not like you don't show those parts. You have been completely vulnerable. But still, in the midst of all of that, you still have this positivity, this shine, this glow about you that says, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to help others in the world. And it's just, I don't know, it defies most people. So it's always something I'm inspired by.
Thank you. And, I always say that if I did not have other people to shine my light on, I wouldn't be so shiny. Like the world is my mirror. When I give you my light, when I inspire you, you reflect it back to me. So that is how I keep going. I have so much evidence at this point in my life that people are, we are the reason, like, I love people. I'm as many times as I've had, things happen in relationship or whatever, like I never give up on people. And so I never give up on myself because I know that I'm just like you. I mean, I don't think I'm that different. We take our own gifts for granted. And I understand that some things absolutely come much easier to me than to others, or what's inside my comfort zone would be way outside somebody else's comfort zone.
Yeah.
But when it boils down to it, we are made of the same stuff. And I have been, I guess, blessed with insatiable sense of curiosity, of wanting to learn from others, wanting to grow, and then give that information back. Like I see myself as a container, for holding a certain amount of information. And then I want to pour it back out. I want to give it back. There's this, I guess it's a sense of generosity, and it's the way that I am of service, but I don't want to hold it close to my chest. I want to pour what I have learned back into others, because that's when then it reflects it back to me that I matter. I've struggled so much in my life with not feeling like I'm enough. And the evidence would show that I am absolutely 100% enough. And the only person that would ever doubt that is me. And I think that's the same for everybody else. Even if, let's say, you had a horrible mother and father who told you horrible, awful things that as a child you never deserved to hear, like that's their story. That's their lie. That's their sadness. It has nothing to do with you, So like, if we can actually learn to actually take, if you've ever read the 4 agreements, don't take anything personally, and be rigorously honest with our word, and be true to our commitments. And I think one thing that I have learned about myself in the last, I would say, I guess always, but in particular, this journey of this last 8 years, is how responsible I am. I am incredibly responsible for my own life. I take tremendous responsibility for what happens in my life. And it's that sense of ownership. It's not a victim mentality. It's the opposite of the victim mentality. It's like, how can I take my experiences and use them for myself? My favorite quote, well, I've got so many, but Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
And responsibility is response. How do I respond to my life in that choice? In how I choose is my growth and my freedom. And that's what I want. If someone were like, Katie, you could have anything. What do you want? I'd be like, inner peace. Peace. I want peace of mind. I want peace. I want ease. I want and knowing that from there, all the material things, like all of that will come, right? But just like, I want that. And so that's this journey I'm on. And I figure if I can share, I figure other people want that too, right? So
all of us,
come along on my journey with me, and let's discover more peace.
Do you feel like you have more peace now? Like, I guess thinking back to life pre all of this, right? You were on the fast track like many of us, right? You had this big, big job, big demands, trying to balance, which there is no balance, but all of it, just like many of us. Peace is hard to come by in that state. I don't think when we're in it, we realize it, right? Of course, we don't realize we're just surviving, but the truth is we're just surviving.
Yeah.
Do you feel more peace now than you did then?
I do feel more peace. I'm not trying. I don't know. I want to, these are beautiful questions, and I want to be honest with myself. I don't want to just sound great for your audience.
You shouldn't.
Well, and don't edit that part out.
I won't.
Because I mean it. Like, I do feel more peace. I mean, I have come to terms with my own mortality. And here's an interesting thing I heard recently, was that most cancer patients, especially late stage, like mine, stage 4, and during the chemo phase in particular, when I was still, that was what we did first. And, you don't know if the chemo is going to work. Like, you don't know if you're doomed, and you have to face your own death. You have to face the possibility that this could be the thing that gets you way sooner than you had ever imagined. You will die. So I faced that fear head on, and I came to terms with it. And then I was like, okay, I'm not afraid of dying anymore. And the funny thing is that what I heard someone say was like, either that's like a permanent, you're not afraid of dying anymore, or it's just a temporary thing. But whether I, because I don't know, I thought about it the other day, I was like, am I afraid of dying again? Like, I don't know. I think I kind of am. Like, I mean, I'm not afraid of being dead. I don't want to die right now. I don't want to, and so it's like, I've surrendered in that way at the tender age of, now I'm 43. I was 42 when I was going through the chemo, but there is a whole lot more peace in my being, knowing that, one, this really is a temporary experiment. I don't get to hold on to it. I don't get to take any of this with me.
Yeah. And
so just embracing it for now and giving myself a whole lot more grace than I ever did before. I got teary a minute ago thinking about the controlling story for me of not being enough. Yeah. And the reason I got emotional about that is because it's just a really tender realization for me to be so aware of that limiting belief and how many choices I made around that, and how many relationships I was in that were not good for me, or how many sacrifices I made that weren't for me, that were on behalf of someone else, or pleasing, or achieving, or losing sleep over, or whatever. And now I choose myself. I choose rest. I choose quiet. I choose stillness. And I'm not afraid of setting boundaries.
That's part of the journey, right?
Yeah. Maybe it is just part of the getting older thing too, but I definitely don't hustle like I used to anymore. I don't hustle.
I think we learn lessons along the way too, that, I don't know, for me, I don't think we necessarily would have been ready to get to this stage 20 years ago or whatever, depending on your age. But I think that's part of it. I think it's part of it that you have to go through some of that stuff to sort of figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like a big puzzle. I don't know. It's like a big puzzle.
It is. Well, it's a tapestry.
Yeah.
We're all spiders in the center of our own web.
Yes.
And, I have a really elaborate web. And the crazy thing, you think about a spider who spends all that time building this gorgeous thing, and then you just come down with your broom and you just knock it down, and they're like, whoa. And then like,
crash.
I mean, the spider's just like, I guess I have to start all over again. And I've definitely had more than one of those moments in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm starting over again. Like, I kind of wasn't planning on that, but here I go. And it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, but you do.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy, but I think we prove to ourselves over and over again that we can, right? We have we learn that we can count on ourselves to get through things. The reason I asked you about the peace is because I think it's important for people to hear that, to your point, going through all that you went through, feeling all the emotions and going through those emotions. I think it's important for people to hear that you can still have peace or find peace, even though, right? And you can, I know
Yeah,
you love to do that. It's an and, it's not an either or. And it is. And even though all of that has happened, there's still peace that you can find on, after working through all of it.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting. Like a lot of us are this idea of like, oh, I want to be happy. I want to be happy. And happy is just as much a state of being as any other state of being. And none of these states of being are permanent.
For sure.
None of them.
For sure.
Nothing is permanent, right? So when if someone were like, well, what do you want to be, happy or at peace? I mean, whew, definitely at peace.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if I had a choice, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if we can maybe recalibrate to what our values are and what really matters to us and give ourselves the time and the space to think about that. And again, this is the kind of thing that I do with my clients is really getting clear. And when we have that clarity of what matters to us at our core, and everybody's values are different. And that's what's so cool is that we are all human and, we've all got all the same parts and stuff, but like what matters to us is different.
Yeah.
And that is so special. And that's what makes us unique. It is that part of us, that conscious part of us that we get to decide. If we were all, if we didn't have a conscious mind where we could make choices and where we have will, then we would all just be, I don't know, like squirrels or something. Like we wouldn't,
Yeah.
there wouldn't be culture and language and religion and philosophy.
Life would be boring. Really, really boring, right?
Exactly, because we would all just be like responding to our
Yeah.
environment and just being like, we would just be like, oh, look, there's a nut. I'm going to go get that. Oh, look,
Yeah.
I got to run from that thing. Like, oh, like, and we have all that part. Like we get hungry and we run when we're scared and all that. But we have this other side of us that really truly makes us so unique and so special. And that's the part that I've really been using especially like my creative side and really knowing that, my creativity is my birthright and it's my responsibility. And by using my voice, that is a form of creation. It is to share my story is an act of generosity and creativity, especially because, we do tell this story. We get to write the story of our lives. And so again, that's sort of like the responsibility piece is saying like, okay, yes, these things have happened to me. What have I done as a result of that? What am I doing? And because I want to share my story with other people, I intentionally make choices that I think are cool, that I think are awesome, that I think people are going to think is awesome because it inspires me. But it's like, hey, look, guys, this is possible. Like, look what is possible when we choose ourselves over and over again, when we choose to open up, when we choose to be in relationship with ourselves and with others and with God. And, it just keeps getting better and more interesting. And I feel more grounded. I feel more respected and more admired. And not only by other people, but by myself. Like my relationship with myself.
Yes.
Is stronger. That's where the peace is coming from, right? Like it's not from whatever the outside world is reflecting to me. It's from the inside world. I just read this quote this morning from Ralph Waldo Emerson that I thought was so beautiful. It says, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us."
Yes.
So it's just a beautiful thing. I do think that our relationship with ourself and the creative energy that flows through us, you could call that God, you could call that life force, chi, prana, whatever it is, however you identify with it, even nature, some people are like, my nature is my God. And I'm like, well, nature is in us. Like we are nature, right? So it's just like choosing to be in relationship with that, I think is going to be for me is the most fulfilling piece of all of this. And then modeling that to others. I mean, I have a 6-year-old now who is just truly such a blessing. And I'm so fortunate and lucky to be a mother to a living child. And, I get to model all of that. And I get to model being exhausted and saying, you know what, mom's going to take a break. Yes, you can watch another show. I'm going to go take a nap. Like, yes, you can. Like, and giving myself permission to do the thing that might be like, oh, I mean, if anybody else saw what I was doing right now, maybe they would judge me. And it's like, well, I'm not judging me.
Yes.
So I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to choose easy and give myself the pause that I need to resource myself. I mean, that's another thing I'm huge with when, I've talked a lot about the brain and how we work, but we've got the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic is the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And then the parasympathetic is the rest and digest, or the healing state. And you can't be in both at the same time. That is actually one of those either or. You either are in the sympathetic or you are in the parasympathetic. And most of us are usually in the parasympathetic. And so we have to actively do things to activate our parasympathetic nervous system. For instance, sleep. When we're sleeping, we're in our parasympathetic nervous system. We're resting, we're digesting, we're healing. And we need a lot more of that in order to heal. And healing is, you cut your thumb, you need to heal your thumb, but we need to heal we need to heal ourselves.
Yeah.
Our souls always need to heal something. And we do that by resting. We do that by slowing down. We don't do that by being busy.
I was thinking as you were talking, isn't it it's amazing to me always that how all these things tie together. It's exactly that, right? All those, we landed on the, trying to get away from that busyness badge, the busy badge, which it's not a badge of honor, and it's really a detriment to ourselves. And it also keeps us away from learning and being one with the thought that we're enough, right? We're enough just as we are, just as we showed up, just as we were born, just as we are here now. And it's all the work in the middle that takes us to get to that point where we realize, and the work doesn't stop, as we just said, right? The work continues, but it's so wild to me every time I'm having one of these conversations that all the things are connected.
Yeah.
Like all the things we talk about, they're just all connected.
For sure.
They really line up. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about two things that are exciting, I think, that you're working on, have worked on, and are continuing to work on. So talk to us a little bit about the clothing line. And I know, but I think it's worth, what it shows another, and you can tell what it is in a minute, but it shows another example of sort of using your creativity to lean into what's going on and find it really is a positive outlet to share that message with the world. And so there's that. And then we're also working on book number 2, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about those things.
Thanks, Marianne. I designed a t-shirt earlier this year. When I had my mastectomy surgery, I had a consult with, of course, my surgeon, but also a plastic surgeon. And I was pretty sure that I wanted to go flat. And I had been introduced to the concept from some Facebook groups that I joined, as well as a woman in my community who was younger than me, who had actually had complications with reconstruction, and so was still flat and was thinking of just staying flat on the one side. And when I learned about the serious complications that occur when women have a reconstructive surgery or deep flap surgery, which is where a woman's body fat is used to reconstruct a breast, I was kind of appalled. It's really shocking. And of course, it's every woman's choice. And I would support any woman making that choice if she wants to go through the reconstruction process. But I was really committed to getting back to being able to pick up my child. And I didn't want the risk of infections and additional surgeries and this sort of that. So I went flat on my left side. And in doing that and embracing my new body, the idea popped into my head that Symmetry was overrated. And so I came up with this idea for a t-shirt, and it says Symmetry is overrated, and it's got one boob on the right side, and then it's got the scar on the left, or depending on if you have had a mastectomy on the other side, you can order it either way. But yeah, so Symmetry is overrated. I think it's really important. For so long, we've had these ideas of what beauty is, and that women have to have breasts to be beautiful. And I just don't think that that's true anymore. And I choose to embrace that for myself and for my own confidence and moving forward with my new body the way it is now. And it's been a very healing and empowering stance for me to take. And also, most of the time, I choose not to wear a prosthetic because I want the world to see what it looks like for a breast cancer survivor. And for so long, women have hidden, and it's been modeled to them to hide behind these prosthetics or the reconstruction. And so you don't know how many women have actually, we're surrounded by breast cancer survivors. We just don't know it because we can't tell. And so I just choose to be loud and proud with my new body shape.
As is always the case.
And then, yes, I am working on my second book. I'm really excited about sharing more about, of course, my cancer journey, but also opening up about more of the things that I went through as a kid and understanding more deeply where my thinking sort of developed and influences that I had and experiences that I had that shaped me, that led to certain ways of thinking, making decisions, choices that I made. And I feel like because as my first memoir was really focused on my experience of Poppy and our marriage and my healing and having my second child and then my dad passing away and sort of everything that I learned in regards to death and reinvention in that regards. And then when cancer came along, I was just like, oh, wow, okay, there's more to learn. And so, knowing that I can share my perspective and just put another voice into the pool of already amazing voices of people that are sharing their stories of living more fully and more authentically, after going through something, really difficult. The working title of that is No Expectations.
Love it.
So you asked about expectations earlier, and
yeah,
and I really think in that sort of, it's kind of a little bit of a snarky title, and I have no idea if that's what it will ultimately be, but it is a mindset. Like for me at this point, it's like this idea of no expectations is that like I can't get too wrapped up in any sort of end result. It's not about that. It's about this process. It's about what unfolds. It's about having an idea and then letting it grow, and not trying to be so much in control. Because I'm only in control of so much, and we all know that that's not very much.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what I'm working on.
I love it. I was just going to say, and we go again, tying back into it all being the same and tied together, because the whole thought that no expectations, right? Having no expectations, not being set on a specific ending or outcome, it's what helps us be more present. Because
yes.
I know I spent a ton of my time being so focused on what happened in the past or what was going to happen on the future. And let's be honest, again, full transparency, I still have to work on that every single day. But when you learn to notice it and you learn to stay more present, that's the magic in not being tied to an outcome and just going with it. There's so much magic in that, and you can truly enjoy things in a different way. I found that personally. So I was just so excited that we sort of connected on that when I asked that question offline when we were getting, connecting whether or not we could do this again, because I just think it's so important. I think that whole idea of not having expectations, letting go of expectations, living in the now, it's one many of us struggle with.
Well, and again, we have to really be honest about the fact that we've been conditioned.
Yes.
And a lot of the work that I continue to do on myself and the work that I do with my clients is deconditioning.
Yes.
And in order to decondition, we have to become aware of how we were conditioned. We have to start looking at what the beliefs are, what the habits are, what the patterns are, and again, a lot of that gets wired into our subconscious. And that's what's so cool about a lot of the work that I'm studying now and the things that I'm learning how to teach others is that, we can rewire our brain. It takes effort, though. It's not automatic. There's no pill. You cannot just like someone can't do it for you. It's about the responsibility. If it's like, if you want things to change and you want things to be different, you have to take responsibility for it yourself.
Yes. An ongoing, consistent action.
And you don't have to do it alone. Yeah, you don't never have to do it alone. You know, and there are lots of people out there that are qualified and anxious and wanting to help you, you know, but you have to seek it out. And I am certainly one of those coaches that loves working with ambitious women, in particular, mothers often, who are really looking to live a life that they want to live, free of the limitations that they've just sort of just accepted as reality, you know, and getting honest about like, hey, look, I do have dreams outside of this box, and I'm tired. This box is like boring and claustrophobic, and I don't like it anymore. I was okay with it, and now I realize there's a whole world of possibility out there, and it takes a lot of courage to step outside of that. So
yes.
Yeah. That's the kind of work I do.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. And I will, of course, put all the links so people can get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you, if they want to check out your book or just stay abreast of all the cool things you're doing. I will.
Abreast. So punny.
Abreast. I didn't even do that on purpose. I couldn't have thought of that if I tried. As always, it has been a complete joy. I wanted to ask you that.
Oh.
Was your name Katie Joy Duke at birth? Is that real?
It is. It's Katie Joy Duke. Yep. It's my mom and daddy did a good job with my name. And I kept my dad's last. I am married, but I kept my maiden name because I am Jim Duke's daughter, and I will always be. And he has since moved on to higher realms, and I am part of his legacy, and so I maintain that name with pride.
And he is a very proud papa, I'm sure.
Thanks, he is. I know he is.
Thanks again for coming and talking with me again. You guys check her stuff out. She's fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marianne.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Message in the Middle with Marianne. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to share it and write a review, as it helps bring new listeners to our audience. If you'd like to keep the conversation going between episodes, please join us at Facebook group Message in the Middle with Marianne.